Hello everyone, and welcome to Job Hunting Advice Part 2. My name is Tim Hayes, and in this video we're going to be talking about cover letters, what they are, why they matter, and what you can do to make one that will get you the position you want. So the first question we usually get about cover letters is, do I have to write one? And the answer to this is that writing a cover letter will almost never hurt your candidacy, so why wouldn't you want to? Contrary to what most people think, they don't take that much time to put together. They're not a particularly long document, and they're not particularly difficult once you understand what the goal of one is. Many employers will look at a cover letter before they even look at your resume, because it's going to give them a lot more insight into who you are and why you think you'll succeed in a position. So once we understand that we need a cover letter, the next question that a lot of people ask is, what actually is one? The answer to this is that a cover letter is best thought of as a statement of interest in a given position. It's intended to make the hiring manager want to meet you by showcasing who you are and what you have to offer. Cover letters are short, never more than a page. Most cover letters will be only 3 paragraphs or so. So what are the parts of a cover letter? Your greeting, your introduction, the body, and your conclusion. We're going to talk about each of these parts in a little more detail. Any formal letter begins with a salutation, and your cover letter is no exception. When we're choosing the salutation for our cover letter, we want to try and strike a balance between a casual pleasantry and a formal approach. We don't want to get overly formal, and we don't want to get dated in our terminology, but we also don't want to be too informal. If you know the name of the hiring manager for a given position, it's fine to use that as your salutation. But if you don't know the name, addressing it as "Dear hiring manager" or "To the search committee" are both perfectly appropriate. The first paragraph of most cover letters is your introduction. Your goal with this paragraph is to set the stage for what the hiring manager is going to read. This means telling them what position you're applying for. To a lot of people, it seems strange to say what position you're applying for, but you have to remember that for many large and medium-sized companies, they're hiring for more than one position at a time. And if I'm the hiring manager who's reviewing 50 applications for 3 different positions, I may not remember which application goes to which position. So say it explicitly to me. There are some pitfalls that people often have here, and one of the major ones is trying to claim that you're the best or only candidate. Quite frankly, most people are bad at judging themselves. And so claiming that you're the best candidate for a position is really just wasting space because I'm going to ignore it. So after you've introduced your candidacy, the rest of your cover letter should focus on trying to make a hiring manager excited to interview you. You won't accomplish this simply by summarizing your resume. The purpose behind your cover letter is to give you a spot to talk about things that aren't easily quantifiable and don't really fit on resumes. So this is the spot to talk about your passion and drive and interest in a position. It's also the area to talk about anything odd about your candidacy. And what I mean by odd is if you're applying for a position that's not local or that you're over or underqualified for, this is the time to convince the hiring manager to ignore those things, to say that you might still be worth a chance. Probably the most common mistake when writing your cover letter is to try and tell the hiring manager what they need. The simple truth is you don't know. That doesn't mean the hiring manager does, especially in larger companies, they may not, but it's a surefire way to offend someone. And if you offend me, I'm simply going to throw your resume and cover letter out. A lot of people will use the same cover letter for multiple positions. We notice when this happens, and it's easy to see, because there's no excitement about the position reflected in the letter. One of the best pieces of advice about writing your cover letter that I've ever seen or heard is that you should write it the same way you would write to a friend and tell them about a job opening that you were very excited to apply to. You wouldn't summarize your resume to your friend. You'd instead tell them why you are a good fit for the position. And that's exactly what you want to do with your cover letter. The conclusion of your cover letter should be a simple and polite statement that invites a hiring manager to contact you. Usually this will take the form of, if you have any questions, please feel free to contact me at, and then your contact information. There's been a shift recently towards using language that creates a social obligation for the hiring manager to contact you. The theory behind this is that it makes it more likely to hear something back, whether it be positive or negative, about your application. If you choose to use language like this, you want to make sure that you're still not being pushy. So language like, "I look forward to hearing from you soon," is perfectly acceptable, while saying, "and I'll be contacting you soon to schedule an interview," is another good way to get your cover letter thrown in the trash. There's a lot of bad advice out there about applying for jobs and writing a cover letter and a resume, and I thought I'd take a second to highlight some of the absolute worst that I've encountered. All of these options are trying to use a gimmick to make your application memorable. As a general rule of thumb, you don't want to be remembered as the candidate who tried to use a gimmick to get hired. You want to be remembered for the content of your application, because those are the candidates that a hiring manager will take seriously and actually make an interview or an offer to. The candidates' gimmicks may make for an interesting story, but they don't make for a rock star at your company, and that's what a hiring manager wants to hire. We've talked a lot about why a cover letter matters to you, but I want to take a moment to explain why a cover letter matters to an employer. And I'm going to do so by paraphrasing someone who's spent their life making a living as a hiring manager and HR consultant. Allison Green of askamanager.org, and also writing an advice column for The New Yorker, points out that more than just skills matter to a hiring manager. Things like personal traits and work habits and communication skills and your intelligence and your drive and mostly your enthusiasm for the job mean a lot to how successful you'll be in that role. And for a hiring manager, your cover letter is the best way to get a feel for these things before they bring you in for an interview.